Welcome to the Belkin's Growth Podcast, hosted by Michael Maximoff, co-founder and managing partner at Belkin's. Today's guest is Sujan Patel, managing partner at Ramp Ventures, a parent company for Mailshake, one of the most popular engagement platforms, ViolaNorbert.com, Writenbox.com, and several other leading sales and marketing automation solutions. Michael and Sujan speak about marketing, growth, and entrepreneurship. Enjoy listening, and don't forget to subscribe for more episodes.
When I was kind of doing my homework before this sit down with you, the first thing that I noticed that, and this is probably will be the starting point for us, did you found Ramp Ventures after you had some success with Mailshake, or the engagement platform, the Mailshake, was a result of the Ramp Venture work?
Ramp Ventures came after Mailshake. And so what happened was my co-founder and I, we started 3 co-founders, 2 of myself and one other co-founder also started another company called Narrow.io in 2015. So we pretty much started 2 companies at one time. And it was let me just hedge my bets. Hey, 50%. Hey, what's the chance of 2 of them working? Is 0. Thought both of them did work, but I was let me just see. I finally found two technical co-founders who were willing to kind of build my vision. And so, I just went with both. And then both of them ended up working out. But it took a long time from starting a company to be viable as a company, right? So meaning I never made any money from it. I don't think I made any money until 2018 or maybe later than that, maybe mid 2018. But what if we could buy a company that we could just use our skill sets in operating efficiency and marketing and product marketing to scale a company? So we're first part of this stuff, that's really hard. And that could take a year or 5 years. The part we know how to do well is after you get that first part, how to get the scaling part or growth part. And so that's where Ramp Ventures kind of came in probably 2006, late 2016, early 2017. So a year and a half, 2 years in, we're why don't we go buy companies making some money, have a good product, and then try to grow them? And so that's what we started doing, bought 2 companies and then scaled to larger companies in 2017.
Got it. And so are you involved in a day-to-day at Mailshake or at Ramp Ventures right now, where you spend most of your time on?
Both. Well, so I spend most of my time on Mailshake. We've got 8 other companies we have 8 companies in the Ramp Ventures portfolio. One of them is Mailshake. It's a crazy number, but the size of the companies range from 2 people, right? Like a developer and a marketer, or a developer and kind of someone who does marketing, copywriting, customer support, sales, more like a kind of full stack.
Full stack marketing specialist, like a growth manager, basically, right?
Exactly. To 20 something people. We're Mailshake, I think we're at 22 people now. And I think we have 5 or 6 open recs. So 20 something, right? The 2 people company, it's a 5-minute, 30-minute, 1 hour check-in, right? If there's a problem, it's an hour. If there's everything good, you guys are working on the KPIs we've set, very simple. So we have 8 companies, but really 4 of them are of size. And so I probably split my time between those 4 companies.
You mentioned you have a software engineer and a marketing specialist working side by side, developing a project, and you guys as a parent company sort of are setting up KPIs, making sure that things work just fine. What is the perfect setup? Because again, right now, for example, I have an engineering team. I also have multiple projects. I have agency. I have this Folderly product that we just talked before this. And I have a few more products and one other venture that I'm interested in spending my time in. So it's 4 projects right now. And for me, it's kind of difficult to understand what is the perfect setup for me to have a product. Do I need to have an engineer and a product person and then just manage them and that's it? Or should I be involved in that project to make sure that it's successful? Because only the founder or a person that is invested in with their money wanted to make that thing works and not just a person for hire. So what's your take on that? And maybe you can advise me something.
Yeah, so I think that there's not really a one size fits all on how to do this, right? And so in some cases, I'd say so let me back up. The factors that come into here are, what is an opportunity, right? The TAM or the market size, or what do you want to Like, what do you think this company can do? So you have 4 companies or 4 projects. What is the potential for these things making money? Right? And like, what are you going to get out of it? Right. So like, I always have like a financial projections of like, here's what I think this thing can do in the next 5 years. And to be honest, it might not work to plan, but let's just say you have a plan of what you want to get to. Now you can say, okay, idea 1, company 1 has potential to be a $5 million business. Company 2 has potential to be a $1 million business. Company 3 has the potential to be a $50 million business. Well, clearly what you do on those 3 companies should be different. And you should probably spend, if you like money like me, spend more time on the $50 million one because it's a bigger business, right? Now, maybe the chances of success are lower there, but whatever, right? So I think you should back out from what the potential of the growth of that company is going to be. The growth of that company potential should also be based off what you want to, your aspirations with the company. So for example, if you're going to go raise money, well, you probably need to go spend all your time on that, right? And people giving you money, they're not going to let you spend time on 5 of companies. So you have to figure that out. If you're going to raise money, that means you can build a bigger team faster, right? So I think with raising money, everything comes faster. So, but let's just say you're not. Like, we have no intention to raise money at Mailshake or any of our other companies. We use the revenue we generate and we put it all back in, and maybe we put some of our own money back in as well. It just kind of depends on the company. But so I look at then the revenue we have to work with and the team we can build from that, right? And so those are circumstances that change what I can do. So one of our companies is doing 50K a month or about 600K ARR. Well, that team is different than my Mailshake doing millions in ARR, right? So what I have to work with is different. But the core fundamentals of, I think, a good team, or the core like factors to kind of consider, or somebody developing, right? Somebody who can code, manage the code base, make sure the product is functioning properly. Somebody who can drive the product forward, right? Somebody marketing, sales, customer service, or customer success. Now, that could be 4 roles, or it could be 1 or 2 roles, right? Like at Mailshake, I'm the product person. My co-founder is a product person. Me and him combined, are the product team. Now, as we grow, we're going to have a specialist and eventually build out that team. But first 5 years of our business, we could drive the business forward with just us 2 looking at product part-time, right? Marketing can also do some sales. If you have hundreds of sales leads a month, maybe you do need a full-time salesperson. And sales could also do the support and success efforts too. I'd actually have them do all of that in the beginning to save money. And also, if a salesperson is selling something and they have to support it, oh my God, they're going to say the right things. They're going to say not just the right things that the person wants to hear. They're going to sell the actual good product because they have to support it on the other end. They don't want somebody screaming at them. So in the perfect world, I'd have all those functions be different and in a unique person for each one with the right skill set. But for the starter or early stage kind of startup, I'd say you might have to get somebody who has those skill sets as well. I like to hire well-rounded marketers who can kind of write copy, who can do PPC, or they can kind of do email outreach for content marketing. They can write email sequences. They know their way around marketing automation tools. I call them kind of full stack marketers, but really more of a growth marketer. And a plus for that is somebody who understands the product. Or a plus would be somebody who understands marketing and sales and product, right? But hard to find, right? Like, so I'd say I'd settle for a full stack, but if they know product and they know sales, even better.
So many questions here. I appreciate you sharing this. So my personal challenge is that when I have Belkins as an agency that I'm every day involved in, I work with customers, I talk to new customers, I work with marketing, I work with content team, I work with product team, with client team, with everyone, right? Obviously, I delegate something, but when I have Folderly and I have my co-founder who is equally invested in both Belkins and Folderly like me, sometimes we have a hard times to define like should I be spending more time with Folderly? And then you mentioned that, for example, Folderly, for me, has much more potential than my agency business just because of the scalability constraints, right? But that's not the question. The question is like, obviously, when you have like ramp ventures and you invest in a startup or you buy a company, you would probably have a lead or a person that will be in charge of that specific company, and you can basically oversee it. But if you have a product or a new company that will be branching out from your existing company, so you'll be personally, emotionally invested in that project because you believe that project equally with other projects, right? So the question for me is specifically about the product side, because again, there might be two people great at product or in engineering, but typically there is like a one who is the best, right? Like whose ideas are the best, the execution the best, like a chief technology officer, right? So when you have those 8 projects at Ramp Vectors, do you have one who will be like a product lead person deciding how the whole kind of thing works, and do you use Agile, do you use Scrum, do you use other processes, reviewing everything, hiring engineers, or you kind of have like, hey, Mailshake product lead, you are the head of engineering, you're building the product, you're solo, like the guy from the Narrow or the technical lead from Narrow will never be involved in the Mailshake development, or you have one person overseeing 2?
Yeah, so I think there's 2 different ways you mentioned. I think the agency model where you have one team servicing multiple companies, or the individual model. I think if you're going to build multiple tools, you could start there, but you want to end in the individual team. And the reason for that is that every company has its own, not just code base, but like what it needs to do to succeed. And ultimately it needs its own individual touch and point. It needs to be thought about in isolation, disregarding any other factor, right? And if you are servicing 4 businesses on the development side or marketing side, it's hard for you to think about only one thing without thinking about other stuff. So starting at the agency model where you have multiple people, one team servicing many companies, totally doable. As you grow, I would recommend switching to like individual team for each company. And that's exactly what we do. Like we have our like shared team, and as the company evolves, we spin it off into its own thing. Mailshake from the start, we've identified the opportunity to be large enough to say, you know what, like we're going to just have our own team. Narrow has its own team, but we also kind of build around our strengths and our founders or team strengths. So for example, I grew up in the agency world. Like I worked at agencies. I worked in organizations that were like matrix organizations where I ran a marketing team for multiple business units and had an agency myself. So I know how to switch gears and move around to different businesses. If I sat in one business, I'd drive people crazy. Like I just have too many ideas and like, are you done yet? Are you done yet? Are you done yet? So my skill set is I can switch gears and I learn from one and I apply it to many. But as most people, maybe that's not their skill set. I'd say I don't know if it's a super unique skill set, but that's what I have. Your skill set might be something different, right? So optimize to your skill sets of the management team or the founding team.
That's amazing. You mentioned that you started Mailshake and Narrow.io together at the same time, and you had 2 co-founders that were engineers, right? People building the products, right? And you were the business person, marketing business person, right? Like promoted. So I have the same shoes that you had back then. So how do you define where to talk to customers from Mailshake or from Narrow, or what copies to create? Or do you kind of, the question is, should it be on top of the both marketing strategies and sales teams yourself? Or what did you do? Did you hire, like, for example, for the Narrow, you said, you know what, I will be doing the SEO or helping with this one. And then for Narrow, I have another guy that I'll be mentoring, and that person will be filling in my shoes later on. What was the process?
Yeah.
Not from because product is more like, hey, I have a product lead here, product lead there, they're developing the products. But what is the marketing is very vague, right? With regards to, you can do both successfully, but what is the priority there?
Yeah. So I looked at this and I led the team's effort. I led the efforts, but I used contractors, freelancers, and employees to supplement, right? So I oversaw the efforts, but when we found an opportunity to scale, when something worked, we scaled. So like, yeah, I started the content on both sites, but when Mailshake's content marketing efforts actually started working and driving revenue, or like something worked, I was like, okay, we need to build this out. Like, I can't keep doing this. And so I don't look at it as, I look at this a little differently than like, what am I doing? How am I splitting my time? I look at this as, what is our marketing? Where are we at as a business, and what do we need to grow? And how can we grow the fastest with what we've got to work with? And always with the eye on like, what else can we do? So I was always on the what else we can do part. When something worked, I'd move like it into a repeatable, somebody else took it over and did a better job at it. So I think that's how I would recommend folks do it as well. Is like, usually as a founder, you have multiple skill sets, right? Where you can do the sales, the marketing, the product, like you've got the vision for the product. So shoot, it doesn't take you that long, and you just do it. You already know what needs to be done. So I think like starting things off, like starting new channels off, is probably where you're best suited for, but giving it to specialists or more experienced people in that specific thing as things start to work and as budget is permitted, right? Like me, I didn't get to go hands off on marketing at Mailshake until 2020. And in 2018 is when we hired our first content marketing person. So, from 2015 to 2018, it was just me, a few writers, various content marketing people, like part-time, or like they'd help with promotion or they'd help with whatever. And then when we could afford it, it was more, we knew we could scale it in 2016, but when we could afford it was 2018, meaning like a marketing person on top of all the content budget,
Got it. Okay. So let's say, I don't have multiple projects. I have one business, like a SaaS company, just started on one. This is my first year, right? When you look back at when you started back in 2015, the Mailshake, and you had your engineers, co-founders, and you were the marketing person, were there any mistakes that you did during your first year that you look back right now and you say, hey, Mike, when you do this folderly during your first year, try not to do this? Are there anything that you can help me that I would probably be doing right now? Like that you did that were like for you right now is more like an eye catcher or something, and you think of it and say, you know what, that was wrong of me. Maybe the way you coordinated the content team, or the way you focused your time on marketing, need to do something different there.
Yeah, I mean, I think we did so many things wrong. We still do things wrong now, right? That like I kick myself in the butt for like doing last year, right? So what did we do wrong? I think we didn't think enough about the TAM and the potential of the size of the business. And then we just had an idea and we went with it, right? I don't think we looked at the viability of the business until like after we launched. And that's stupid. You spend a year of your life, spend a lot of money and time, and then you're like, oh yeah, that's not a good business. That's not a good industry to go after. So Mailshake started off as a company called contentmarketer.io, and we're targeting content marketing people. And I just kind of ran with the idea. But if I did the homework on like the potential of the idea, the potential of the market, like what we can do, how we can stand out. And I just kind of put together, not a business plan, but like did more of the business research to see the viability of the idea, I think I would have probably ended up in a different place, right? The other part of this is like just moving fast, right? Again, we pivoted. It took us 2 full years to pivot from content marketing tool to sales. And then it took us another 2 years to realize where the money's at in the industry is in the sales space, right? So if you think about our biggest competitors, Reply, Mixmax, Outreach, SalesLoft, they all started around they started like the biggest head start there was like a year. So everybody started at the same time, but we started off as a marketing thing and they started off as a different tool, right? It took us until 2017, January, to get to be the product we were. So even though they had maybe a year max head start, they actually had 3 years to market head start because of how long it took us to get there. I think that whole 2 years could have been condensed into like 3 months or 6 months at the most, right? Had we put more time into it, right? So I did Narrow and Mailshake and had a full-time job and was doing consulting. Had I said, I believe in Mailshake, I'm going to go heads down, I'm going to go all in, I think I would have got to success or failure faster. And I still, and again, I said like 2017 is when we started and going after what is Mailshake today. And then 2019 is when we said, you know what, look, we're an email outreach tool for marketing people, salespeople, HR, solopreneurs, raising money. When we look at the numbers, the majority of our best customers are sales teams and sales people. And then probably the next best would be like HR. And the next best would be marketing people,
right?
Like marketing companies, like agencies, link building and whatnot. But if you look in 2019, when we did the analysis, and then you look at our marketing efforts, 60, 70% of our marketing efforts is targeting marketers when our best customer is sales. And so that's stupid, right? Like, why would we do that? But all of that could have been found out early on. We could have done that analysis in 2018, 1 year into the business. We could have, again, like, I think we could have failed faster. Now, in hindsight, reality kicks in. I couldn't do Mailshake without a job. In hindsight, I couldn't put enough, I put in maybe a few $100,000 into early parts of Mailshake to build Mailshake. I couldn't put this few $100,000 unless I had money to do that. So yes, I should have done that, but grass is always greener. Now, maybe I didn't have to put as much money into it had I done it in a shorter period of time, aka failed faster. But those are the things I would go back and get there faster. I think I still would have done the multiple companies because, I think a lot of people tell me you should focus. And my response to that is, you don't know my goal. So what's my focus? You don't actually know. So my focus is, Mailshake is a big opportunity, but I'm actually working on multiple companies to create multiple big opportunities. And I personally enjoy working on multiple things and not always being in the weeds. And so we'll be building up the best in class team we can at Mailshake and all of our companies to get us to those goals. And usually I replace myself with people who are better. So I've been doing marketing for almost 17 years now, 18 years, yet we're hiring a VP of marketing. And that the requirement is they have to be better at marketing than me. And so think about this. What's better, my focus time on Mailshake, or hiring somebody who's better than me and then also helping a part of time on Mailshake? I'd say the latter, just because you get somebody who wants to do that and is good, and then you also get another person like myself to help with that. So that's kind of, I guess, it could be justification, it could be dead wrong, and I can come back to you in 5 years and say, Michael, man, I really made that mistake. But that's kind of how we're using it, what we're doing to grow our companies or our business model.
This is strong. One of the challenges I think that maybe I'm doing wrong right now is when you have those multiple businesses and you're hiring great people, you always want them to work together, right? You always want to share their experience to be able. So every one of them, they have their own KPIs, they hold their own agenda, but you want them to work either off one office or work together, because again, you don't want have for example, the folks from the Mailshake don't know anything about the folks from Narrow, because if they can combine and work together, they can be more effectively, because this is the human capital and the brain capital, right? So what is the company culture that you guys did? Do you when you hire, you don't have one Slack for all the teams? You kind of have 8 companies with 8 Slack where every team, they don't know each other, they don't talk, they don't have monthly meetings where they're marketing people for all the companies exchanging. What is your take on that? Should I be putting all of them together so that they can rotate between projects or promote from one position to another in different projects, or should I that's mistake, because again, for them it will be a defocus, so they need to work separately and they don't need to know about the successes or failures of other projects?
So we have our own so we're all remote. We do have quite a few people in Austin. I think there's 7 or 8 people in Austin. And I think that's just kind of osmosis from just my network, or our network being stronger in Austin because we're here, right? But yeah, remote. We each have our own Slack. So we try to have each company has its own focus, own team, but it doesn't mean we can't learn from the other teams, right? And so like all the marketing people at Ramp Ventures properties, they talk, they hang out. We have a separate Slack for like the marketing people, or like I've got a couple people on the Mailshake Slack that are not Mailshake employees. They're just like, they're marketing people from our other companies. And so, yeah, I think herd learning, meaning like everybody learning from whatever one company fails or succeeds at something, can that be applied to other companies? Absolutely. Failure and making sure the other companies don't make a mistake? Absolutely. So shared learning, when we figure things out once, we apply many, right? Like the customer support method we use and the software and the people and the whatever, everything around our process, that's like very cookie cutter to the other three companies after we learned it at Mailshake. Our marketing strategies not necessarily apply the same way, but there's a lot of learning. So absolutely, in terms of shared community learning and like that hive mindset, once you learn something once, you could do it at many times. And then all the marketing team, they're like always, we invest a lot into learning and mentorship and coaching. All of the sales team, they all learn together, regardless of the company they work at. All the marketing team, they all take right now we enroll in Conversion Excel, CXL training, HubSpot. It's like we spend so much on coaches training and mentors that we're always like, everyone's leveling up quickly and they learn and share together. Because again, like you might be the only marketer at the company, but you have peers elsewhere at our other companies that we try to say, these are your peers at your company. Doesn't matter. Like that's, your guys are coworkers regardless. But yeah, I mean, as a remote culture, I don't know, it's a little hard to build the culture, but I think if we kind of have those shared learnings, it definitely helps.
Got it. Here's a question for you. Let's say I just let my content writer go from Mailshake and I have some deadlines and I know that I need to produce that content or that I have that webinar that I need to package, so on and so forth. And I have this great content writer at Narrow.io, right? And can I go and say, hey, can you help me with this assignment for Mailshake? Because again, I let the John go and I need this to be done right now. Or for example, the graphic designer, right? Because for UI UX designer, you can create that email for this other company. Do you do that? Or for you, it's sort of no-go and you never use the resources from one company for the benefit of another business?
We do. We utilize our network for multiple companies. Yeah. My personal take is, as a human being, when I find someone good, I find opportunities to work with them forever until it doesn't make any sense. And I say to this day, we hire and work with people that I've met, when I started. So one of my boss at my very first job out of college at an agency, I still talk to him and he still like advises me on stuff. Right. And, I think we've got freelance writers that we've worked with for 10, 15 years. Like my editor at my personal blog, sujanpatel.com, she edits all my stuff. She knows me probably better than most people in my real friends, like actual friends, because she edits all of my stuff. Like she reads all my personal updates and has to like make sure their grammar is good, right? And my grammar is horrible, so she has to do a lot of fixing. But anyways, yeah, absolutely. When you find great people, utilize them everywhere you can. And this is not like me taking from the network, right? Think about this, like the opportunity. I was like, my writer, the freelance writer I work with, and she has a bunch of freelance writers she works with to scale and help us. Sarah, I'm like, hey, Sarah, like, look, I want to use you at these 3 other companies and I want to give you more business. Can you handle it? Is that what you want to do? Is that like, is this going to help you do what you want to do? And so there's that like two-way street, right? We've got a couple marketers. Our marketing person at Mailshake started working with me in my agency. And I'm like, hey, look, I've got an opportunity. I want you to be in this position. Is this like something you want to take? And then like that person, my vision for them, and I secretly I haven't told him this, but if he hears it, he'll know, is that I want him to be the head of marketing in another company, right? That might be a little smaller, something he can handle more, but he's being trained up to head the marketing team at another company. So I think there's Absolutely. Anytime you can make someone great. Now, one thing you need to make sure is you just don't, you understand what they want to do. And there's alignment. And two, you don't do things that distract them, right? I don't believe, for a while we had one marketing working for two companies, doing the marketing for two companies. That works okay. But as soon as we could get them to do one, the budget was was the limiting factor here. We did. And we backfill someone else's role. So yeah, absolutely. Utilize your resources as much as you can, right? Train once, apply many. You'll see that theme. Learn once, apply many. You'll see that like one, many approach. And frankly, that is also how we're able to manage multiple companies, right? If I didn't have shared resources or people I've worked with for years, I don't know if I could do what I'm doing today.
I just wanted to add that reassurance for you because, again, when I do this right now, I've never heard from someone else in my network that did that before, right? And I was sort of like, am I risking here? Is that the mistake that I'm doing right now? Then in 3 to 5 years will be a major mistakes that I will, will not be able to be successful as I want, so on and so forth. So I appreciate you just reconfirming this for me here. So I know that I apologize for taking more of your time talking about the business because this is what I'm passionate about. I'm an entrepreneur, right? I know that a lot of people that can be listening to this, they are either in sales or in marketing, and a lot of them are dealing with email. So what I wanted, because you guys at Mailshake have so many customers that are using you and sending out emails. So the two things that I wanted to find out from you is, do you analyze any of the data like that you collect to get those best practices? Like, hey, these are the subject line that works. This is the approach that worked great. These are the great personalization points that are very popular. We've seen that they have tremendous success. Do you have that kind of analysis going on? And if you have, can you share some of the best practices with me? I have some great questions about the email best practices or calling best practices. So is that something we can talk about, or you're not very passionate about this?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So we've sent, I don't know, we're close to billion emails sent. Not there, that's a big milestone for us. But I try to look into the database and try to distill anything that we can do to help our customers or better learn about, like, hey, if we do this, it works better than that and the other, like try to get any statistical significance on something working or another. And the reality is, first of all, you cannot look at your data and say, if you do this, you'll get better results. Right. Because everybody's result is different. The result of success is it an email open? Is it a link click? Is it a purchase? Is it a lead? Is it a demo? The actions of this are different. So what I look at first and foremost is you have to ask and look at the data of like who, and split it up based off of the intent and the goal. So if you do that, you got most of our customers want to book a meeting or have a call, right? There's a like a conversation that happens. So if you say anyone whose goal is conversation, I think there are definitely statistical things or things that we've learned. Personalization is a very, very big important thing. And what you're going to hear right now, a lot of my advice is almost the same stuff you read everywhere else, right? It's what people say a lot of. If you personalize your emails, they're short, scannable, reduce the number of links, make a clear call to action, of course you're going to get better results. And all the data proves that, right? I found that if you personalize 25 or 30% of an email, that is the yield of the highest results. Any more, you might drop it because it usually ends up being longer.
Got it. Can we stop on this personalization? So what do you mean by personalization? For me, personalization is it like changing first name or company name, or going and checking your personal LinkedIn page and pulling data about the last post that you like or something? What are the typical personalization points that you've seen works, or what is the personalization for you here?
Yeah, so the hardcore, like I'm just going to give you my definition of personalization is if I'm going to email 500 people, I want to make sure there's those 500 people, somebody gets something unique, not besides name and company and position. That is par for the course. Like you have to change those things to even be effective, right? That's being relevant. But what I mean by personalization is if you have 500 people you're emailing, some part of that email is different for those 500 people. Now, it doesn't have to be different for all 500 people. Maybe it's 10 different variations. So there's 50 emails going out, 50 of the same emails going out. And I don't actually mean personalization as in like I individually type in 500 different things. So I think categorical personalization, like I just don't say the same thing 500 times. I say it maybe 50 times. Anytime you can get that number lower, great. Number two is you are a founder. If I can speak to you versus I speak to a marketing person versus what I say to a salesperson, that might be me just changing the first sentence to speak to a founder, to say something that you might care about versus a marketer versus a salesperson, right? So it's persona or position-based personalization. And then there's like time-based, right? COVID's happening. So if you mention like, dude, it's hard for everybody right now. If you just say that doesn't, you could say that in all your outreach and you'd still be more effective. So, and then there's like the one-on-one, right? So I think like the one-on-one is the hardest to do and generally the hardest to measure, but any type of personalization is going to dramatically improve your results. When I say dramatically, I'm saying double usually
right.
The goal. The reason I say it's dramatically improving is that if your first email gets open and even not responded, generally the sentiment, either good or bad, is there on any other follow-up. If they don't open your first email and you get them on the third one, it's harder to get that conversion.
How many steps per sequence do you typically see that works the best? I've seen that if it's more than 3 steps per sequence, so after the third, let's say the fourth step, that people start getting annoyed. So the chance that you're going to book some appointments after that sequence is kind of lower. And obviously that depending on the industry, right? But generally between 3 to 5, is this the best practice or you've seen more or less?
I think it's somewhere between like 7 and 10. Don't get me wrong, people do get annoyed. So you are annoying people. But I look at this as how do you not annoy people? Okay, so solve the problem of most impactful number, and then how do you stop annoying people? And so looking at it is like, how do I create value, right? So usually my follow-up emails are, how do I help this person? How do I share something, a resource that's helpful? So a lot of my follow-ups are just like, hey, I just want to send you this. I was thinking of you. Here's this article I think like would help you or whatever, right? Some of it's from our site, some of it's from whatever. So I think it's just about like value add. And then how do you make your follow-up emails value add?
Right. So if you just follow up generically saying, hey, just wanted to check in one more time, let me know what you think. Well, that's going to be annoying, right? But when you send a valuable article or a piece of content or a podcast or a video or something, that's something that might like help folks. So they will appreciate that, right?
One thing to add here on the follow-ups, when I add the value, I don't even have a call to action. I just send them it, because they already know what I want. I want their money, right? Like I want a demo. I want a call. But that's implied, and the I'm following up part is also implied with the fact that you're sending an email, right? So just get to the point.
This is so true. Yeah. So obviously, when you send a value bomb and you say, hey, let me know what you think, or let's have a call about it. That's just that's annoying, right? Because you give them something and you want something back. But when you just share a value with them, that's it. Hey, I thought about you while reading this piece. Check it out. Here's the link. Best Mike, right? So typically when I send something like that, even in my sales follow-up emails, people after a week or so say, hey, Michael, read the article. Amazing. We probably utilize something of that. Sorry for not getting back to you earlier. I was super busy. Let's touch base next week. I want to have that call and move forward with the campaign, right? That's the effect that you wanted to get. But if you put that call to action, that will be probably like, hey, Michael, thank you. Sorry, we don't need this or something, right? So how do you go about calling? I'm asking this because recently I changed I don't know how, but my personal cell phone got sold to some database. I don't know what, but I'm receiving like 65 calls per day from some folks, and that's super annoying. I mean, then they start calling my employees that don't work for me right now. They say, hey, can I talk to Ariel Wolf? And I'm like, Ariel doesn't work with me. Oh, who is calling? Why do you need Ariel? Oh, I'll call him back. And man, how do you personally go about calling? Because I mean, one of the features that you guys have, you have a dialer, right? You have a dialer,
Yeah,
right?
we have a dialer. We do a phone as part of your sequence. So first of all, I'm not an expert on the phone part and the omni-channel approach because I'm not the actual one doing the calling. I think our sales team is probably much better equipped at doing this. But I think it's about, here's some things I think are really interesting. First of all, yes, it is annoying. Like, don't get me wrong. But like on the phone, how do you not be annoying? Ask a question. Like, how do you, if you leave a voicemail, it's the same thing as if it's an advertisement. How do you make a Facebook ad where you have someone's half a second of attention? What's the first thing you say? If you say, hey, I'm Sujan from Mailshake. I wanted to talk to you about your sales software. Are you doing any cold calling like this? Weird, right? Like, if I said something about like, hey, I know salespeople, like, this is, you don't even need to say your name, right? You just say, are you dealing with like people hanging up on you? I'm blah, blah, blah from this. We've got a solution that does this, right? So like the same thing as an email. If you start with a question or something engaging, it's the same thing when you get them on the phone. The scripts should be how you get someone's attention, right? The first thing when you call is all about, and so I don't do the calling myself, but we follow a lot of the best practices and like a lot of what like Jay Barrows talks about. We kind of do a lot of, predictable revenue. I think like we look to see what like the leaders are doing and we learn and optimize from them, but it's a lot of the same things. Think about the prospect shoes, right? So, we have a company that sells to small business owners like brick and mortar, restaurant, retail, whatever, right? First of all, we have to look at who the person we're talking to is. Sometimes it's a business owner, sometimes it's a manager, right? And the manager might be just like some $15 an hour employee and they're like just out of job. They don't give a crap about the business the way the business owner does, right? And so to the value prop to that person is like, hey, are you spending a shit ton of time doing this? And then the value prop to the business owner is like, dude, you're paying your employees to do things that a $50 a month software can do. You can save a bunch of money, right? So the value prop is different. So I think it's just all about also personalization. The same principles are there as if it's an email, but you're just now saying them out loud. And reality is when you say them out loud, it's a little different. But in my emails, and this is something that's helped my customers and my team get better results, is read your emails out loud as if you're talking to someone. And if they don't sound like the way you talk or like the way you would want to, like you'd have a conversation with, then they probably they're too generic or they need to be rewritten. Yeah. So I don't know, my call scripts and our email scripts all kind of read the same as if as a conversation.
This is great. And you mentioned starting off email with a question or with something engaging and not introducing yourself or the reason why you're emailing. This is powerful, right? Because that's the only way the email can work, right? Because if you start with something like, hey, I'm with Balkans and I am kind of reaching out to you about this and this and this, no one cares, right? But when you address the problem, hey, are you looking for acquiring more customers, right? Do you have capacity for new customers? Then it's like, yeah, I do have that. What do you want, right? What do you offer? Yeah. So this is great. Yeah. So listen, I know we have a full stop in about 5 minutes. Just wanted to ramp up with this question in general about like marketing automation space. You guys have 8 companies. Every one of them solve one of those challenges for marketing and salespeople and the challenge of the automation. So what are the kind of hot topics in 2020 in the marketing automation space where you see like there's an interest going in? I've personally seen that everything is around intent data these days, right? Have you seen something that is like popping up right now in the people's radars?
Yeah, I think intent is good. Enrichment is always like knowing more about the people you're emailing, right? I think that it's not sexy. It's not fairly new either, but that's like people are finally starting to use that data, right? So like when I send like sales automation, when I'm emailing my prospects or when we're selling, when people are using Mailshake for selling, they prune their list, they enrich their data. They kind of take a lot of steps to make sure they're emailing the right people and they know about them and they're personalizing. I think on the marketing automation space, marketers are finally realizing to do the same freaking thing. Know about the person. Personalize your emails, put them on a custom journey, know the intent, and get the intent from the start, right? Like there's a lot of content written on all sorts of topics, But then does the marketer that writes for that topic, do they know the leads that are coming in, and do they know what those leads want, right? I think that's there. I also think gamification and more of the like, for the last decade, we've seen so many pop-ups that say, put your email in, here's some value, template, download content, newsletter, whatever. On the B2C world, you see a lot of like, spin this wheel and you'll get whatever, right? Take this quiz. That stuff is showing in the B2B world for marketing automation. And that helps you find the intent of that person. So if you look at my site, sujanpatel.com, and you click on this, like on my consulting page, and you click, it's not even a form, it's a freaking questionnaire. And it's almost like a game. We make you fill out, it's not a form field. It's like one question per page. And it's like, find out how effective your marketing strategy is, right? And, you know, we're a marketing agency, so all answers lead to hire us, right? Obviously, or like, you know, it's definitely rigged, but it's like, you're kind of getting information in like a gimmicky, gamey way. I think a lot more of that's going to kind of come in play, because people are just tired of seeing the same old, like, put your email here. And then then you have to find out the information about that person, but why not just get it from them, right? So I think just marketers being smarter about the data that they can get from somebody, and not just saying, here's a 10-step form, 1-step form to fill out, 10 fields. It's, give me your information. Oh, buy in? Okay, get some more information. And then using marketing and sales together, right? So marketing automation plus a phone call, right? Imagine a marketing person becomes a lead. Oh, sorry, you get a marketing lead for an email newsletter, but you call them and say, hey, what'd you think of that blog post? Now you can turn that marketing lead into a sales lead, or qualify or disqualify them. So what it really comes down to is getting getting emails, and the cost of doing marketing is more expensive to get the information. So you might as well get sales involved earlier to make sure you have more value from that information that you paid more for.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of Belkin's Growth Podcast and found it useful. Be sure to subscribe and catch upcoming episodes on iTunes and Stitcher.